Hey, welcome to Talking College Football with Luke. I'm Luke, and today Anwar is really glad to be here. Hey, Anwar.
Hey, how's it going? How's it going?
All right. Hey, listen, Dan is not going to be here this week. She had some things that came up, just made it impossible for him to be on. So we're going to go ahead and get started without Dan. So you got um, just one analyst today, and it's the one with the most bold statements.
I do have some
Um,
wild ticks.
he li- so anyway, he also likes to rock back and forth, but we'll go ahead and get him to be stationary today. All right, so listen, Anwar, they just released the top 25. Did you get a chance to look it over? What are your thoughts? Any misses or anything like that?
I did get a chance to look over the top 25. We'll start with the top 10. We got Texas at 10, Notre Dame at 9, Oregon at 8, Ole Miss at 7, Texas Tech at 6, Georgia at 5, Alabama at 4, Texas A&M at 3, Indiana at 2, and Ohio State at 1. Uh, you know, I don't think they got anything wrong. I think some people might complain that Notre Dame's a little bit too high. Maybe some people think Texas is a little bit too high. Maybe some people might say that BYU should be, a little bit higher after only dropping one game to a highly ranked Texas Tech. Overall, I don't have too many problems. I think we can see that the committee still values Notre Dame, moving them up, even though after a decent win over Navy, and Texas right in there. Back in the playoff spot. So we'll have to see what they do with the rest of their season.
What do you think about the fact that Ole Miss and Texas Tech switched spots in that 6-7 spot there?
Oh,
Is that a big deal?
I don't have any
No
problem
problem
with
with
that.
that.
Yeah,
Okay.
we saw that Texas Tech is a complete team. They've really got a strong defense led by Jacob Rodriguez. I really like what they're doing on the defensive side of the ball. They really just shut out BYU if you guys watched that game. BYU could get nothing started on offense. They shut it down a very strong BYU run game. So I think I have zero problem with them moving up. I think Texas Tech could be in tops with those elite teams like Texas A&M, Indiana, and Ohio State.
Okay. All right. I'm just looking at this thing. There's a couple new teams. Cincinnati's now in there. They weren't ranked before. South Florida is in there. And, one of the things I'm gleaming just looking at this is well, we got 8 SEC and 6 Big Ten teams in the top 25. So, and here's something that's kind of interesting when you look at it as a whole. When it comes to the group of 5, one of the things, excuse me, sorry, group of 6, that's what they're called now. The group of 6, um, South Florida's in there, and that affects the ACC because the highest ranked ACC team is Miami. Yeah, it's Miami at
To win the
15 and
Heisman.
Georgia Tech at 16. So um, we'll see how that affects the playoffs. I know there's a scenario that I've been looking at because of where those teams have been ranked. Duke, which has a legitimate chance of winning the conference, if they win the conference, listen to me on this, there's a chance that nobody from the ACC makes the playoffs. And that because the
I've heard
rules
about that.
are the highest ranked conference champs. So, what that would do is it would make it Big 10, SEC, Big 12, the American, and the Sun Belt. And the Sun Belt would then be represented by James Madison. What do you think about that scenario?
Well, see, that's one of these scenarios that most people. That is an absolute chaos scenario. Okay, it's gonna take a lot for Duke to get into that big ACC championship game. But what we've seen from the ACC is, I feel like the ACC this year is kind of like the Big 12 last year, and we're going down to the last couple weeks of the season, and we still just have no idea who's gonna be in that ACC championship game. A lot of football to play, but this is an absolute disaster scenario he's talking about. The Group of 5 also took a big hit last week with teams like Navy going down, San Diego State going down, Memphis going down. It's just chaos. It's just complete chaos, specifically within the group of 5 and the ACC slot. But Duke winning and getting in and not getting in with those 3 losses they already have would be an absolute insane situation.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and I would imagine. I wonder if they would immediately change the rules so that that couldn't happen. All right. So, and think about this right now. Potentially, you could have this is how crazy this stuff gets. You could have of the 12 teams, if that situation occurred, potentially you could have 5 Big Ten, 5 SEC, Notre Dame, and the Big 12 champs. That would be awesome. That would be awesome. All right. So let's move this forward a little bit and let's talk about the pretenders and the contenders. So name your, let's go with just 4 teams that are legitimate teams to make it in. Who do you see, Anwar?
Okay, so in terms of, are we talking about making it into the playoffs or winning the championship?
Oh, excuse me. I'm talking about who can win it all, not just
Okay.
making it in.
Yeah, so there for me there's 4 teams that can win it all. Um that being Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, and Texas Tech. I know a lot of people are like, "Where's Alabama and Georgia?" Well, Georgia, we've seen that their defense is utterly garbage. They don't have a great defense. Offense is elite, but I think there's too much struggle on the defensive side of the ball to make them a national championship contender. And then with Alabama, they just haven't shown the ability to run the ball, and that's not a recipe for a championship team. One thing that Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, and Texas Tech all have in common is that there are very few weaknesses on those teams. All those teams can run the ball. All those teams can play defense, and all those teams can throw the ball. So those are my 4. Those are my 4. A
All
complete,
right, so
well-rounded team.
I heard you say that Alabama and Georgia, and in this case, Ole Miss, are all pretenders, and your contenders are Ohio State,
Yeah.
Indiana, Texas A&M, and Texas Tech. It's a pretty bold
Yes.
statement, but that's why they pay you, Anwar, the big bucks, to give us hard-hitting analysis like that. Let's spend a quick. We talked a little bit about this, but let's talk about the conferences right now. Now that we've done pretenders and contenders, let's talk about right now, based off of the data that we have. How many teams do you see getting in from the ACC?
Right now, I just see 1. Listen, I
And who is
like
that
you see.
team? Huh?
Man, when it comes to who's that team, that is a big thing. Right now, I think Georgia Tech has the best chance. I think Miami's probably the best team, but because of the 2 conference losses, it's gonna be hard for them to jump some other teams. So right now, I've got uh, Georgia Tech coming out the ACC, and I only think they get 1 because the loser of that ACC championship game as was probably gonna have 3 losses, and I don't think coming from a weak ACC, I don't think that's enough to get them in. So I'm gonna say 1. I don't think the disaster scenario of 0 is gonna happen, but I could
All
see
right.
1.
So let's move over to the Big 12. Where do you see that? How many do you see potentially getting in from the Big 12?
I'm gonna have to say 1 again. I'm gonna have to say 1 again,
Really?
and yeah, I I think it's gonna be Texas Tech. And I'm like that. I'm pretty sure about. I'm very sure that Texas Tech is a strong team. You know, I feel like BYU. I've been saying all year that they're kind of frauds. I haven't. I didn't see. I know their defense is good, but like I didn't see enough spark into the passing game. And I think the theme of this season has been who are the complete teams. And I think BYU is also in that category of not being complete team. Um, so I'm gonna have to go. Just that one being Texas Tech. And BYU still got a shot. It's always tougher to beat a team the second time you play them because you've kind of read their schemes, you've got better film on them. But we just saw what happened last weekend, and it was not close.
Hey, I'm going to differ with you. I know I'm the host and you are the analyst, and you get final
Eh.
say so all of this stuff, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper than you uh, from the Big 12. I can see where, yes, Texas Tech, BYU, but now I got to look at Utah because right now they are just outside of the top 12 in the 13 spot. I think that's significant. And then they brought in Cincinnati, and made them 25. So I can see three. I see a window
Okay.
for three out of the Big 12. Um, so let's talk about the next conference, the SEC. This one's, they get 8 teams ranked. How many can you see legitimately getting in from the SEC?
I can see a scenario where SEC gets 4 teams in currently. So right now I think those 3 that we're definitely looking at as almost locks are Texas A&M, Bama, and Georgia. That last spot for the SEC is going to be interesting. I do think we try not to talk about this, but some conferences do have preferential standing. So right now, I see the Big Ten and the SEC. They have some sort of a. I'm not gonna say like it's biased or anything, but I think it's pretty well nationally known that those are the 2 strongest conferences, and I feel like there's 2 lost teams or potentially even the 3 lost teams out of one of those 2 conferences will get a bigger boost from the committee over a team from the Big 12 or the ACC. Realistically, I could see 2 teams getting it from the Big 12, and so if you add those up, 1 from the ACC, 2 from the Big 12, 4 from the SEC, 3 from the Big Ten, and then you've got Notre Dame and a group of 5 that rounds out your 12. So I'm going to change my answer a little bit. I think that 2 from the Big 12, and I'll say 4 from the SEC. However, I can say that last spot for the SEC race is going to be interesting to me.
Okay, well the question wasn't that, but that's close enough. And how many can you see getting in? So you're saying 4 from the SEC. I can see where they have a path to 5. Okay. How many from the Big 10? I
So
mean, I
I
know you
think,
said 3.
yeah. So I think right now the Big Ten is probably the easiest one to slate out, and I think those 3 teams being Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon. Um, Oregon won a tough game last weekend on the road, rainy conditions, minus their top tight end and their top receiving threat, and they still pulled off a win against a good Iowa team. So I know the score is close, but I saw a lot of Oregon out of Oregon that they can win those type of games, and I think that's they're sitting on the 1 loss. Still got USC up and Washington up on the schedule. We saw Washington have a terrible loss last week, so maybe Washington's not all that strong. But USC. But right now I would take Oregon over USC, and I think those are the 3 teams that are getting in for the Big Ten.
Well, I can see 4. Uh,
USC
SC
would
needs
be
to beat Iowa this week,
yep,
and then it's on because they got Oregon. You're not going to leave a 10-2 Oregon out, and I don't believe you'd leave a 10-2 USC out. So I could
yep,
see potentially 4 for the Big
yep.
Ten. All right.
It's gonna come down to that USC Oregon game, and if the Big Ten wants to have 4 in, USC is gonna have to beat Oregon, and they're gonna have to let both of those teams in with 2 losses. If Oregon
Okay.
get 3,
Now,
and right now I'm predicting
so
to win.
let's talk about Notre Dame. Are they a lock to be in there?
Yeah, right now they're a lock to be in, unless they lose to Pitt. Pitt is a ranked team, all right. And what I saw out of Pitt is very strong offense. A quarterback that one of these runaround types. I feel like Pitt is kind of got revitalized in the season. Their starting quarterback Eli Holstein went out, and they bring in this freshman quarterback starting for the first time. He's looked really good so far this season. Pitt is a fun team to watch. So they could give Notre Dame a scare, and I'll be paying attention to that game. However, I still would have Notre Dame pulling off the win, putting them in the playoffs.
All right. Here's what I'm going to say. We've followed Pat Narduzzi, the head coach at Pitt, from his Michigan State days all the way over here. His calling has always been defense. And I'm not going to make my pick right now because later on we're going to be doing our picks for this upcoming weekend. But let's just say I differ from you. All right.
Now, so you
Let's
think
talk about
Pitt gets
that
the
group
win
of
there?
6.
Okay. Listen.
Well, we're not picking yet. It's a different section, but we're
Yep.
just talking about, where is Notre Dame in or out? So the question now becomes group of 6. One of them gets in automatically, simply by being the top team in the best conference. So talk about that top team and maybe who would be the second team.
Oh man, the group of 5 is an absolute mess right now. As I mentioned earlier, you had teams go down that were solidly in the spot. Memphis, they went out, they're in. Then Memphis goes out last week, they lose. You have San Diego State. Well, if Memphis loses, then San Diego State's got a great shot. Then they go and lose. We all expected Navy to lose to Notre Dame, but still, the fact that they lost, not great for their chances. So once again, you get this complete reshuffle, and then there's these guys out there in Virginia named James Madison University. I feel like nobody's been talking about them. And this whole group of 5 shuffle, and now they're in the lead for this group of 5 spot. Unless you talk, even though USF is ranked. Ooh. Actually, the fact that the committee already has USF ranked but doesn't have James Madison ranked, say those two, James Madison and USF wins out. Even though JMU has the better record, I guess the committee values USF more with the bigger wins. So.
Oh yeah, they have huge wins at the beginning
Yeah.
of the season. They got the win over Florida and
Boise State.
in Florida State. So they got some big wins. They got some really big wins. All right. So let me ask you this. Let's move to the next section and let's talk a little Heisman. Now, with 3 games and then the conference championships to go, is it, in your opinion, to answer this question first before you go into anything else, and is it too early to start talking Heisman, or should we put it off for a couple more weeks?
Oh no, it is absolutely not too early to talk about the Heisman. In fact, I think this is the time, given the expanded playoffs, we've seen that these regular season games at the end of the season mean more than ever. And right now, a lot of these teams are fighting for playoff spots, and we always talk about this Heisman moment. And right now is where these guys can come out, have a good showing, make a Heisman moment. And we saw that with Fernando Mendoza
Well, hold
last
on just
week.
for a second. You're going too fast. Let's talk about the contenders before you start talking about Heisman moments. You're going too fast, if you don't mind.
All right.
All right. So who do you see as your top 3, 4, or 5 Heisman contenders?
Yeah, so here's my 5. So I've got Fernando Mendoza, I've got Julian Sayin, quarterback at Ohio State, quarterback at Indiana. I've got Marcel Reed, quarterback at Texas A&M. I've got Jeremiah Love, running back at Notre Dame. And this is a guy specifically Dan asked me to shout out. Um, he's definitely the most talented running back, I think, in college football this season. But we can see if the running backs can still win this award. And one last guy I want to give a shout out to. And when I saw this stat, I almost couldn't believe it. But Texas Tech has this linebacker, Jacob Rodriguez. He has 7 forced fumbles on the season. I don't think I've ever heard that before. That's insane. A lot of guys are lucky to get 3 forced fumbles on a season. and we got a linebacker at Texas Tech with 7. So I think, man, a defensive player is not going to win it, but I feel like I just need to give him a shout out for putting those incredible defensive stats up.
Well, here's my 4. My 4 would be Jeremiah Love, um, Ty Simpson, um, Fernando Mendoza, and Julian Sand. So, with that being said, let's go about talking about. I want to give you. You want to talk about the um, Heisman moment. So, go ahead and explain your Heisman moment, and then I'll give you my take on the Heisman moment.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, so I would say the two front runners right now are probably Julian Sayin and Fernando Mendoza. One thing about Julian Sayin, Ohio State really hasn't run into a tough game since Texas. So Julian Sayin has been completing 80% of his passes, throwing minimal picks, putting up a bunch of yards consistently, but he hasn't really had the opportunity to have like a fourth quarter game winning drive, just like we saw with Fernando Mendoza. Fernando Mendoza actually hasn't had the greatest stats. He's not putting up incredible numbers, but he's the quarterback for the number 2 team in the nation, and he's playing really well. I'm not saying he's not playing really well. But last weekend with that game-winning drive against Penn State, really like starting with him making great throws on the stretch and culminating in probably one of the most memorable moments of the season with that game-winning touchdown. I would say that's one of those Heisman moments, and the Heisman vote, it's like a fan vote. And, I feel like fans definitely appreciate those game-winning clutch time moments.
Okay. So here's how I'm going to describe. You're talking about the national narrative of the Heisman moment, but when you complete 80% of your passes all year long, when you have 5 or is it 6 300-yard games all year long, and you got 25 touchdowns and 4 inter, uh, interceptions all year long, you don't need a Heisman moment. Your consistency of play, in my opinion, is what determines who is the best player in college football. Now, with that being said, my 5, like I said, would be a little bit different than yours, and I would probably rank them a little bit differently. I'd have say right now, my pick to win the Heisman would be Saying, the quarterback from Ohio State. Um, but you know what? Him and Mendoza are going to have a chance to determine that potentially on the field during the Big Ten championship if everything rolls out the way it looks like it could roll. So that's pretty good as far as who we got for the early Heisman talk. There's still a lot of football to be played. I mean, you got, like I said, you got 3 more games plus the conference championships. All right, let's have some fun. Let's
So
preview and pick the
I can,
big games this week. All right. So
okay.
let's start off with Pitt versus Notre Dame at Pitt with College Game Day there. Who you got? Give us an analysis of that game, and then give us an
Oh,
analysis of the game, and then give us who you think's going to win.
sure. So with this game, this is going to be a very fun game between two strong offenses. And I know you talked about Pat Narduzzi bringing the attitude to defense, but when I watch this Pitt team, this is a fun run and gun offensive team this year, which is unlike Pat Narduzzi. But that's what this Pitt team has been this year. Like I said, they've gotten rejuvenated after their starting quarterback went out, and they bring an electric freshman in. Notre Dame, they've definitely improved on throughout the season. We saw them go down the first 2 weeks of the season, but now I bet most people would have Notre Dame favored over Miami if they replayed. They finally figured out how to run the ball a little bit more. Not figured out. They just had to get Jeremiah Love those touches, being the talent that he is. Um, if Notre Dame loses here, they're 100% out of the playoff race. And Pitt, they need to win to keep themselves alive for this ACC race. Um, with that being said, give me Notre Dame.
Notre Dame. Okay, there you heard it from our analysts. And I'm sure the other analysts who would normally be here would agree with you 100% in Notre Dame. And I'm going to be the contrarian. Um, I'm going to go with Pat Narduzzi's defense to win in that pit environment. I mean, that's like there's an old term called bandbox. I mean, they're right down on you. I can see Pitt winning this game. Let's talk about USC Iowa, because that's a big, big game, more so for USC than Iowa. Iowa lost last week on a last-second field goal by Oregon, and they only dropped one spot. So obviously the committee really likes them. And there's a potential for them to, if they win this game, be the 3-loss team to make it. So what do you see on the USC Iowa game?
Sure. So, once again, we've got with this game, unlike the Pitt and Notre Dame game, we got a complete mismatch of styles. We have the offensively explosive USC and the dominant defensive Iowa. With Iowa though, their offense is a little bit better than it has been in years. This isn't, your 2023, 2024 Iowa team. Their offense is at least average now. So, for Iowa to win this game, they're going to need a couple big plays in maybe the special team, the defensive category of the game. I thought Iowa looked really good against Oregon, but, with USC, they're vying. They're trying to keep their hopes alive. Iowa, after that loss last week, I feel like they probably feel like their season's done, and it's tough to go across the country all the way from Iowa to Southern California and get up and play a game. We've seen these Big Ten teams struggle when they have to go across the country. So give me USC.
I agree with you, but not for the reasons. But I agree with you, USC. All right, there's a big one in the SEC. There's two big ones in the SEC. Let's talk about the first one. Oklahoma, the Sooners travel to Tuscaloosa to play the Crimson Tide, Alabama. Who you got, Oklahoma or Alabama? Give
Sure.
us an
So
analysis and then tell us who you think is going to win.
sure. Oklahoma, led under Brett Venables, has had a great defense this year. Uh, you know, at the beginning of the season, the John Mateer Heisman hype was huge, but I feel like this calmed down ever since his injury. He hasn't really looked terrible against the injury, but he hasn't been back to form. It's going to be tough for Alabama to move the ball on this Oklahoma defense. However, I feel like there's not much Oklahoma can do offensively. Bama's defense is still too talented, and I've got Alabama in that game.
Okay. I'm going to agree with you, but I am going to say this. You're a quarterback and you break your hand. It's tough to come back. And he came back early, right? He's now had a layoff week, and now they'll be ready to go. The hand is probably fully healed by now, but I think Alabama is like, you know what? We got a legitimate chance to be a top 4 team in the playoffs. We're not going to let this opportunity pass us by. Plus, this is part of that revenge tour from last year. I think that Bama wins, but I think it's a much closer game than you and anybody else are saying. All right, here goes one that's sneaky, sneaky good and pretty hard to pick, and that's Texas versus Georgia. So I want to get your thoughts on that and who you think's going to win.
Sure. So this is going to be definitely a fun game. I'll definitely be tuned in watching this one. Uh, so Texas, we've seen kind of a resurgence from Arch Manning. It's almost like he all of a sudden recognized the talent that he has, and Texas offense has been really fun to watch recently. They go early in the season, lose to Florida, lose to Ohio State, both great defenses. But this Georgia defense is not at the level of that Ohio State defense. Is not at the level probably even of the Florida defense, especially from earlier in the season. So, you know what? This is going to be my upset pick of this week. I think Arch Manning goes around, slings the ball, and you're talking about revenge tour from last year. Texas lost to Georgia twice last year. So, big revenge factor. Georgia's already lost a home game this year. Uh, I think Texas will probably go out and lose to Texas A&M next week. But for this week, my upset pick of the week, I'll take Texas over Georgia.
You know what? I agree with you. I was surprised that a Kirby Smart defense, um, they're like 13th in the SEC overall as a defense. I was really surprised. And you're right. It seems like Arch Manning has figured out, hey, I'm a Manning. I'm good. I should start playing good. So last couple of weeks we've seen it. Um, and I agree with you. I'm going with Texas. So there you have it, fans. This week we as a group, the analysts chose Notre Dame, Pitt to lose to Notre Dame. There was some dissension there, but the analyst always has final say. Uh, the analyst chose USC over Iowa. Our analyst chose Bama over Oklahoma. And the coup de grace would be Texas over Georgia. So I know you're asking how come we didn't show what you should do if you're having people your friends over to watch the football game. We didn't have Ms. Renee the barber's meal on, so we decided to change it up a little bit. For those of you who stuck around, she's made a pretty good dish for us this week: stuffed baked potatoes. Let's take a quick look and see what she came up with, and see if this is something we could do.
Just a minute to share with you a few things about this air fryer baked potato that I love. Number one, it cooks evenly. Number two, it produces a soft, tender, and fluffy inside. Number three, it has an amazing, super crispy skin. Now it's easy to prepare. You just wash and pat dry, poke, drizzle with oil, place in the air fryer at 400 degrees for 45 minutes. Remove, slice, open, squeeze, release the steam, and do your thing. Now you can be basic like I am right here, salt and pepper and butter, or you can load it with sour cream and cheese and green onions. But be creative. What are your favorite toppings? You can add bacon, broccoli, shredded pork, barbecue sauce, black beans. You see, the list goes on. If you like this video, hit that like button. But most of all, enjoy.
Well, what do you think? You think that's something you could make? That looked pretty easy. Pop them in the oven, cook them for 45 minutes, put your favorite toppings on. What do you think?
Sounds simple, but it's going to be great for these upcoming cold weather months. I'm in the Midwest, December and January. It should be perfect to keep you warm.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm looking forward to when she finally delivers on those on the for the big Ohio State TTUN game. She says she's got something really special for us. I'm looking forward to that. Hey, so that brings us to the closing of our show. Sorry, Dan could not be here today. He had some technical difficulties. He's not sick or anything like that. Anwar, I want to thank you for being on this week and bringing your 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 commitment to college football fandom with you each and every week. You have delivered. You and Dan usually have delivered. Like I said earlier, when it comes to our picks, we are undefeated. We have not missed a pick all year long. We're asking that you don't go back and check how we've picked these teams, because we're not keeping track of how we're doing. We just say it with authority. We are undefeated. So, on behalf of everybody, if you like our show, if you like our content, if you like what we bring to the table each and every week, um, we want you to like. There's a little button down there. It's a little thumbs up button. We want you to hit that button that you like it. Then there's one that looks like a little arrow with a little curve. That's the share. So let everybody you know about Talking College Football with Luke. And finally, um, I'm looking at the number of views that we get. We get a ton of views. We need you to subscribe because the only way we can grow the channel right now is through subscription. So it doesn't cost you anything. It just, you get notified every time we publish. And we publish starting this week, both Thursday at 10 a.m. and then we'll have our secondary show with our picks on Saturday mornings to be released by 8 a.m. just in time for game day to see how we stack up against people who get paid the really big bucks to do this.
Okay.
So,
Let me
Anwar?
let me give 2 shout-outs real quick. First of all, so as Dan cannot be here with us today, he asked me to announce his picks for this week. So he had Notre Dame, Iowa, Texas, and Bama for his picks. That's on first. Dad can't be here with this today. That's unfortunate, but those are his picks. Second of all, I want to shout out our Instagram account. That would be @ talking college football _ currently right now there aren't any posts up there, but right now this week really working on getting these posts up there, and I'll be on all week on this Instagram page getting it going, so give us a follow on Instagram as well.
Oh, are you going to do a live Instagram?
You know what, why not? Maybe for next week I can give a little Instagram live. I don't have work this weekend. I'll be able to watch these games, do a little live reaction. So maybe check me out. Maybe doing a little live after maybe one of these big games this weekend that we just talked about. So
Well, do you want to do a live? If you do a live Instagram, what game are you going to have your eye on then?
let's we'll start off with Notre Dame Pitt. I think like just giving it a little, like maybe
Or
after the
you
end
want
of
to
the
do
game.
Notre? We'll get
Maybe,
Dan on, and we could do Notre Dame Pitt live.
okay.
What do you think?
That would work. Yeah,
We'll talk
either
about
way.
it.
That Yeah, we'll talk about it. But I was thinking like doing a little post game live, kind of like initial thoughts right after the game. So
Okay. All right. Great. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. See you next week on Talking College Football with
see you.
Luke, featuring analyst Anwar and Dan. So we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Talk to you later.